hello, and welcome to the latest episode of the Give My Head podcast with me, Tim McGarry.
And me, Michael McDowell.
Yes, me, Damon
You
Quinn.
usually say comedy chums. You usually say comedy chums before that.
You need a lead in now.
Right.
You need to be told to speak.
I'll start again.
We'll start again.
No. It's started now. It's all right.
Right, okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special episode this episode because this episode will go out, will be revealed, will be released on the 13th of July, which, of course, is the day they're celebrating the 12th, because the 12th is on a Sunday. You don't celebrate the 12th on Sunday. It's the 12th of July. It's the 13th of July today, when it goes out, and you can listen, of course, any time. So we thought we'd have a very special episode, because, did you know, on this podcast, what do? We have comedians, we have politicians, we have actors, we have writers. We haven't had enough history, and we like our history.
Yes.
And we
Boyne
thought
special.
we would have
Battle of the Boyne special.
a 12th of July Battle of the Boyne special, and who better to talk to us about the Battle of Boyne but a very good friend of the Hole in the Wall gang, a man a very dapper man, a man who's never seen without a tie and waistcoat and shirt, and in fact goes to the shower dressed exactly like that. If you watch our wonderful history show, The Long and the Short of It, he's been a regular guest and contributor on that. It is Dr Gavin Hughes. You're very welcome, sir.
Thank you very, very much for inviting me. Oh, the great and the good and me.
No, we're delighted to have you. Thank you very much. You're not a historian, but you're an archaeologist by trade.
I am indeed.
So you're a digger around in holes and a pointer into holes and things like that.
I used to be. I haven't wielded a trowel in anger for about 35 years, but
Right.
I used to, all archaeologists, they start, learning how to be a practical archaeologist, and I did exactly the same. And then I decided, you know what? I'm going to go because I went to university in a very, very small place called Lampeter, in Wales, mid-Wales, and it specialised in theoretical archaeology. Theoretical archaeology.
Okay.
And anybody who knows...
That sounds like you don't even have to go outside.
You don't. You have to stay. You can stay in the pub, look out the window, and think great thoughts. And a friend once said, I used to wonder why Lampeter produced so many theoretical archaeologists. And he said, you go there and there's nothing else to do but think. And that kind of obviously I kind of ended up, doing our theoretical archaeology and historical archaeology is called now. So
what is theoretical archaeology?
Basically, there's two kinds of differences. You see, Michael, there's dirt archaeologists, which are field archaeologists, and they're the ones who do all the work. And then there's armchair archaeologists, which are theoretical archaeologists, who pontificate greatly about all the theories. And I'll tell you this, usually theoretical archaeology is mostly suited to the Bronze Age and prehistory, because let's be quite honest, you don't know what's. It all depends on a lot of theory and a lot of ideas and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I'm glad we sorted this out.
Do you know what? Never mind all that.
Come get on to the plots beating the takes at the Battle of Boyne in 1690. Can we get on to that? You are a military historian, by trade as well.
I am indeed.
You are an expert in
I am
military
indeed, for my
historian.
sins.
Do you know he spends his time painting Napoleonic figures?
I do
in
indeed.
his spare bloody
in my
time.
spare time. Little men
You have
in
written
uniforms.
books on Gallipoli and all sorts of the Irish regiments of First World War. So military history is your thing. Battle of the Boyne, 1690. Can we clear up a couple of things?
You most certainly can try.
King Billy wasn't riding a white horse.
No, he was not.
It wasn't on the 12th of July.
It was not.
And the Pope wanted King Billy to win.
He did.
There you go.
There we go. That's a 12th of July special.
What about that?
I was very happy when he did.
Yes, he was. He was extremely happy. Yeah.
Right.
So,
but look, I mean, there are people out marching today, and are marching before today, and after today, and during this entire season. And the Battle of the Boyne is very significant in Irish history. You go over to England, people wouldn't even know what it is.
No, but you know what? That's the thing. I mean, when it comes to battles, it's funny how some battles are instantly kind of very, very popular, and they are taken to people's hearts, and then they get forgotten after a while. The Boyne is one of those battles which it certainly hasn't been forgotten on this island. You can they'll tell you that. But other battles, Aughrim, for example, which was fought on the 12th of July. People don't really know much about Aughrim, and Aughrim was perhaps one of the most important battles of the two. The Boyne, 1st of July. And of course, now it's kind of eclipsed. On the 12th, you'll see people with the banners. Of course, you will see Aughrim, you'll see Enniskillen, you'll see Derry on the banners. Mostly it's Boyne, mostly it's William crossing the Boyne. And interesting, you'll also see banners with the 1st of July, for the Battle of the Somme.
Yeah.
And that's also quite interesting. It's pure, you could say, pure coincidence that one battle is fought on the other in the same day as the other. But it's tying it all together, and all these things are little strands. You know.
It was fought on the 1st of July, 1690, but the Gregorian, there was the Julian
That's
calendar,
it.
became the Gregorian calendar or whatever, either way around. But anyway, the calendar's changed, so that's why it's celebrated
yes.
on the 12th. But the actual Battle of Aughrim, which was a year later and was
Yep.
actually more significant militarily.
Yeah, that's right.
But the significance of the Boyne is twofold. First of all, Billy and James are both in the field, the two kings, basically.
That, I mean, you couldn't, if you were to write like a dramatic script, you know, the thing about the Boyne is that you actually have these two field commanders who are both kings. You have the usurper king, or prince in waiting, we should say, because he's not king yet. Prince William, Prince of Orange. He's there waiting. He's asthmatic. He's not very fit. He's not very soldier-like. King James is the warrior king. He's the former admiral of the fleet. He's the Duke of York. He's of whom the songs sometimes kind of get sung. He was actually the man who, whenever after the Treaty of Breda and things like that, with the negotiation with the Dutch, they named New Amsterdam New York because of James II. So he has this huge military kind of reputation. And he faces off against this weedy-looking guy, who's married to his daughter.
His daughter, yeah.
And that's, right. Yes, no, Damon. Yeah, no,
Family relationship, really, isn't it?
it is awkward. Hashtag.
One of my favourite jokes about the Battle of Boyne is the one about King William, and he's riding back on his white horse.
Of course.
By the way,
Yeah.
and he sees James sitting at the on the side of the road, and he got his head in his hands. He goes, "Is that you, James? You want a lift?" And he goes, "Oh, no, thanks." He goes, "What's wrong with you? You look a bit down." He says, "Of course I'm down." He says, "What are you down about?" He says, "What am I down about? I've just been routed. Oh, I've lost the Battle of Boyne. I've lost the throne and everything. Would you not be down?" And he says, "I've lost the battle. Like I'm totally squandered." And King William says, "Ever worry about it, James? Give it a week, it'll all be forgot about." But we haven't forgotten it.
We haven't forgotten it. We haven't forgotten
And why
it,
is
you
that?
know.
I mean, what do you think the reason?
Oh, do you know what? I mean, it's odd. I think it's because whenever the whole era that it ushered in of the whole kind of Protestant ascendancy, and that became, what do you hang of a tradition upon that? Well, you hang the Boyne and the Williamite Wars on it. And they started to, actually there's rumours that there was a Boyne society started about in the early half of the 1700s. Mm-hmm. And they were known as, I think it was like the gentlemen of the back street or something like that. And they were all quite well-to-do folks. And they set up a secret society to kind of celebrate King William. And I think they had a bust of him when we had their dinners and things like this. And that evolved into like a military tradition. So some of the lodges which began to be formed out of Masonic lodges, frankly, before the Orange was thought of. And they had like the Orange and Blue Society. For some reason, they attached it all to William and the victory at the Boyne and the victory at Aughrim. Do you know what? I mean, you wouldn't have thought really that somebody like William would have been idolised, and it's kind of like a bit of a joke, isn't it? This whole cult of William, with all even like down to the fact of his artefacts. That makes me laugh because you kind of have this whole kind of thing. It's almost like this is controversial. It's almost like the artifacts you get associated with saints, venerated things, relics, absolute relics. Like, and my favourite thing, of course, is King William's gloves.
Right. Yeah.
That, to me, is one of those things that absolutely blows me away every time. Not because they were sort of belonging to King William, but because for a battlefield archaeologist, you can tie exact moments to an artifact, whether it's a musket ball that has been sort of used in the impact, it has obviously hit somebody or hit something. You can identify that to a moment in time. Well, these gloves you can identify to the Battle of the Boyne. We've got artistic representations of the gloves that he's wearing. These are the same gloves that the National Museum of Ireland have. We can trace them to who they were given to, Sir John Dillon at Lismullen House, where he stayed on the night after the Boyne. And you know that he was writing orders on the 3rd of July, on the 2nd and 3rd of July, and you've got ink on these gloves.
Wow.
You know that he was using them. And his buff coat from when he was wounded the night before the Boyne, when he was out scouting with some senior officers and the Jacobite gunners see him across Old Bridge and Dunnorthing.
Shot.
Oh, there's a whole bunch of commanders. Oh, let's take a wee pot shot. And he's shot, and he's wounded in the neck. Blood starts gushing from the buff coat. And effectively, the rumour spreads across the Williamite army and the Jacobite army that William is dead. It reaches London pretty much before the battle. The news of the battle reaches London. And his wife, Mary, thinks that William is dead. And then she hears by the next dispatch a few hours later, no, he's all right. And she writes him a furious letter, for God's sake, will you look after yourself, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And you kind of think that's the sort of thing you think, any Northern Irish sort of housewife would say that, for goodness sake.
You put me through that.
Yeah, you put me through that.
Making me think you were dead.
Catch yourself on. You're not 18 anymore. You know this. You know. And the thing is, you kind of think this is I kind of find the whole thing, just so inspiring. Is because here's somebody who's a bit of an underdog, because he is taking on James, who's the king. He's also taking on the might of the French army and the empire under Louis XIV, the Sun King, the most influential monarch in Europe for decades. And you think the chances of him winning at the Boyne are not great, actually. They're not great at all. I mean, it's actually, a small battle. By European standards, it's a small battle. But you've got 50,000 men on either side fighting it at the Boyne. And of those 50,000, only 2,000 are killed. Of those 2,000, around about 500 Williamites, 1,500 Jacobites. So that gives you the momentum of how, obviously, James thought, all my men are getting killed, I'm out of here. But yeah, it's sort of...
Well, the significance then is, right, just that laying it all up.
Yeah.
Like, so you're going to have, it means that the English king is always going to, our queen is always going to be Protestant from then on. It means that the French are not going to run Europe. They're not going to control Europe as much as they wanted to.
That's it.
But the question that keeps coming up and that I keep getting asked is was he gay? was William gay?
Do you know that's one of the questions that everybody seems to ask? You know.
But it's the way they do history these days.
It is.
You've got Queen James coming out. Who was James?
Oh, James. Oh,
James's dad.
Well, I'll tell you this. With James I, James VI, I'll tell you this. He used to refer to his courtiers as my male lovelies. So I don't think there's particularly any argument on that one.
Yes, but
you know what you mean, Damon.
It's what sells history now, though, isn't it? It's not.
It is.
It's not, with all due respect, guys.
Little men in
waistcoats and
that's right.
And the nice tie and who look very professory, saying, this is. I mean, tell you about the League of Augsburg, and let me tell you about what was all going on. Right, this is. But was he gay? That's.
I can tell you. Well, I can tell you categorically, Damon, and this answer is nobody knew that whenever William died, when he was riding out and got hit a molehill on his horse, fell off his horse and died, and the Jacobite toasted the gentleman in the little black velvet jacket, all that kind of stuff. When they were laying him out on his bed, they opened up his shirt and they found his wedding ring to Mary, who had died, and a lock of her hair.
He was very devoted to her.
He was utterly devoted. And I think he might have been, also these things, was William III autistic? He possibly was, because he had a very small group of friends and he wasn't very convivial. He didn't have a wide sort of social group, but he was utterly devoted to Mary. So, next. Look, 6, 7.
Right.
You see
moving
swiftly on.
You see the statue of him at Carrickfergus. He's not a big lad now. Is that a good likeness?
Again, that's why I identify with him. It is sort of, it is.
Rather than the white short.
I took my daughter there when she was very small, and I think every child thinks, it's Captain Hook.
Yeah.
It's Captain Hook. Well, you think, it kind of does look a bit like Captain Hook.
Well, look, we don't really need to go into too much detail, because it is quite a complicated period of time. Basically, King James II is the king of the United Kingdom as it is.
Well, you're king of England, Scotland, and Ireland.
He's a Catholic, converts to Catholicism. Protestants aren't terribly happy about that, but think, don't worry, he may be all right. He does some things that annoy all the Protestants, but then the worst thing he does is he fathers a son. And the Protestants think this will lead to a Catholic dynasty.
That's it,
That's the bottom line for them. So they invite William of Orange from Holland to come and take over the English throne, which he does in 1689. King James flees to.
It's a bit like
Ireland.
asking Donald Trump to come and take over here.
It is, isn't it? It is. I'm going to run a golf
Oh,
course.
yeah, better. No, he wouldn't do a better job. So James flees to here.
He builds a reflecting pool.
He puts himself in the money. He flees to Ireland. He loses the siege of Derry, which means that Ulster.
That's it. You see,
which is kind of very
pivotal,
important in this
because
whole
once
thing.
Enniskillen and Derry, once that's gone, you've got frees up a whole load of angry Protestants and angry Huguenots, and the Ulster army is free to play. So James is put in a really poor situation. What does he do? Does he fall back to behind the Shannon, in which case he leaves Dublin open, or does he fall back to the Boyne? And that would be quite a good military tradition to fall back on the Boyne, because that keeps his line of supply open and all that kind of thing. But it's been hotly disputed ever since. Did he do the right thing? He probably did.
Yeah.
He said it was a
Did
fair
he
and
choose
different.
the battleground?
He chose the battleground. He said it was fair and different piece of ground. But actually, it's probably a bit stronger than he thought. It's just
So June 1690, King Billy arrives here. It's a complicated European situation because
It
James
is.
is supported by the King of France, but as I said earlier on, the Pope actually supports William because he doesn't like the Louis.
He doesn't like Louis
Louis
the
wants a different
14th,
Pope and wants to control the Pope, and it's all. So it's far more complicated.
The Pope's in with the Protestants.
But yes, exactly. But it's not so. I mean, Northern Ireland being Northern Ireland, you go, well, we beat the Takes on the 12th of July.
Yeah.
The armies were made up of all
Absolutely.
different religions and all different
and
countries.
actually, there's a
So
huge
there's
amount
French
of-
and Dutch and English and
Germans,
Irish and Germans.
everything, of course, like some Schomberg. Now, Schomberg leaves Louis XIV's army, hugely experienced marshal and general. He leaves it because of the Edict of Nantes. And that basically discriminates against Protestants in France. And he's a German Protestant. He says, right, you know what? I've fought for you for 20, 30, 40 years. I'm like, all right, I've got no option. I'm going over to William.
It's like switching from Arsenal
It
to Man
is.
United.
It is, and they don't. And some of them put in the bids, David, and some of them don't.
Yeah.
It's like Marlborough, for example. Marlborough, he defects. He's like James II's right-hand man. I always feel he's a bit shoddy because all his titles and honours James II gives him.
It's Churchill, isn't it?
It is Churchill, John Churchill. And the second he said, oh, somebody's landed at Torbay. Oh, he's got a nicer wig than James. And then basically he defects and follows the Williamite cause, gets his first field command down south, and then he's kind of like put in a bit of limbo because nobody trusts him. William doesn't trust him after the Boyne. It's very odd, but you kind of think there are lots of Williamite commanders who fight at the Boyne who William ends up really, really trusting. People like John Cutts, who ends up fighting under Marlborough in the wars of the Spanish succession following the Williamite Wars. Ends up being known as the Salamander because he likes the heat of fire so much. And somebody once said he was as dumb and brainless as his sword. And that kind of this. But these are all the personalities that get
I have
thrown into
another
the mix.
very historical question.
Go on.
Right. Is it true?
6-7.
Is it true?
Yeah.
Is it true that James was called James the Shite?
Yeah, do you know what? I was wondering whether I should make Seamus O'Haki, yes. I was wondering whether I've got Tim will make me say a dirty word again, But yeah, he was. And he was for very good reason. Because the Jacobites fought intensely courageously at the Boyne. And the first one out was James II on his way to Duncannon.
Well, there's another story
Yeah.
there. I wonder, is this true as well? And I read it a few times.
Yeah.
And it's James is as you say, one of the
Yeah.
he's getting out. But he derides the Irish. He goes, the Irish
yes.
the Irish are all cards, they're running. And one of them says, well, Your Majesty, it seems, has won the race.
That is bang on, Damon.
That right?
That is right.
Well,
that is right.
The accent wasn't necessarily.
But
The accent was a bit followed.
but no, that's spot on.
Yes,
Spot on.
this is true,
And
isn't it?
It's true. And then the diarist John Evelyn writes, so that the king brought news of his own defeat before anybody knew of it.
Yeah.
So
Well, why did
basically,
James panic? I mean, as you said, there's not many people dying in this battle, so why does he panic and go got her on?
I think when he sees the Williamites, I'll tell you what it is, Michael. The Williamites, they forced the crossing at Old Bridge, the Dutch Blue Guard, who actually are mainly Catholic. So William's favourite regiment is his bodyguard, mainly made up of Catholics. And he despairs whenever they end up being charged by the Jacobite cavalry, because when cavalry attack infantry, it's not usually a pretty sight. The cavalry will win. The Blue Guard do a thing called platoon firing in the middle of the water of the Old Bridge of the crossing, which means that one section fires, one section fires, one section fires. It's not a usual tactic. It's certainly not a usual tactic at this period of time. And they drive the Jacobite cavalry off. So James sees the Jacobite cavalry retreating. He sees the Jacobite relief force being attacked by the Williamite cavalry relief force, which during all this melee and all this battle, of course, Schomberg dies, Walker dies, and so there's lots of big, personalities being picked off in the battle as well. So you could say the Williamites could say, well, no, we just lost Schomberg, we just lost Walker. They don't, because they're looking to the Blue Guard, and the Blue Guard have held the line. The Enniskillen Horse have come up and started to make inroads into the Jacobite cavalry. The Duke of Berwick on the Jacobite side has been leading charge after charge after charge all afternoon, even though the battle is pretty much lost. James II has seen the Jacobite, but in his eyes, he thinks the Jacobite army has melted away. They haven't melted away at all. They are reforming, they're trying to go and outflank and outflank, but they're just being swamped. Once Old Bridge goes, they can't hold the Boyne.
Right, okay.
And once Old Bridge, the village of Old Bridge, has been forced, it's almost like, well, you have to kind of retreat to another part of the battlefield, or can you reforce Old Bridge and force the Jacobites back, force the Williamites back across the water again? And they can't do that because they're cavalry retreating.
Okay.
Can I go back to something you said?
Go on.
That's an historical question. Like, you mentioned about how New York was named after James, who was then the Duke of York.
Yeah.
And you never hear anything bad about anybody called the Duke of York.
Do you know what is funny, that,
you never
isn't
do.
it? It's funny,
So maybe they liked it being called after the Duke of York. But they were still running America at the time, weren't they?
Yeah.
Why didn't they change it to New William or New Orange?
To be quite honest, because it's New York, again, like New York, there was nothing really kind of like, there was nothing sensorial about being called the Duke of York at the time, And I do believe there are a lot of pubs, were called, the Duke of York. I mean, the thing is, they didn't really, I think it was one of those things, because he was kind of involved in the whole naval campaign against the Dutch. It was kind of like an honorary thing for James to be saying, well, do you know what, we're going to name New Amsterdam New York, and that'll be, a bit of an insult to the Dutch,
So they just thought, we'll just leave it there.
Yes, because
even though he lost,
we won't tell anybody.
See, I didn't know that New York was named after James. Did you not? Now, there's another rumour.
Okay.
Now, we know, first of all, William was quite brave. He was shot the night before, and as you said, people genuinely thought he'd been killed, and apparently he rode round his troops going,
I'm all right,
lads.
all right. And then, of course,
don't
during the battle for Old Bridge, of course, an Enniskillen horse guy levels his pistol at him. No, he don't, but levels his pistol at him, and William says, oh, fire it at the enemy, please, kind of thing, and sort of, all of these hoops,
Well, is it true then that because the rumour did go round that he was dead, that the Jacobites, by the way, a lot of people might go, because it took me a long time to realise that Jacobites are named after James.
Jacobus,
James is Jacobus in Latin, so the Jacobites are James's army. And William, did you know that? Did you know? You didn't know that? You didn't even know what a Jacobite was. Jacobites are the James's army.
They're loving this. They're taking notes.
But so William was shot the night before, and it was a real rumour that he died. Is it true that the Jacobites then broke into the brandy and went, hey,
no.
And apparently were half cut the next day. Is that true or is that not true?
Tim, you could possibly say that. I couldn't possibly comment, because I mean, would it be like before any sporting event for an Irish team to get the opposition roaring drunk? I mean, would that be?
It would be wrong for us to indulge in sectarian stereotypes on a.
But there is a story that happens. There is a story that they did break into the brandy store. Yes, there's one story about that.
Right.
But whether it's true or not, it's hard to tell, but there is a story a contemporary story of that happened.
See battles like that. You're a military historian, and there were other people saying that you said 50,000 soldiers, but it's not just soldiers there. There's kind of hangers on. People come to go up and watch. There's people coming to loot and stuff and hanging on. I mean, are there women and kids there? Are there coming sitting on the hill going, "This is great entertainment"?
Yeah, absolutely, and I'll tell you this: the word buffoon.
Right.
Do you know where the word buffoon comes from?
I've never heard word buffoon.
Buffoon during the English Civil War. Buffoons were the local gentry or people like that who used to go and take their tea whilst they watched like Marston Moor unfold or Edge Hills and like that. And they were known as buffoons because they turned up in buff coats, buff skin coats, but they weren't soldiers or anything like that. They just did that in case they got injured by a stray.
Is that to say, don't shoot me? I'm
basically, I'm in. And if somebody did, they had a bit of protection.
Right.
So buffoons. Right. That's where the word comes from.
And so there would have been a whole entourage of people. Would there have been women and children like sitting there?
There would certainly been camp followers.
Yeah.
I mean, and armies have had camp followers since time immemorial. Right. So, I mean, basically, the Williamite wars are exactly the same. You'd have brought your family with you. Private soldiers would have had their family, their children, and they would have been by the baggage trains and stuff like that.
Right.
And usually out,
well away
from the fighting, but close enough that whenever they knew that their side had been victorious, they could loot the dead. Because that's the other thing, of course, and that would happen right up to the 19th century.
Were they off limits in a sense? I mean, because it must have been, I would have thought they'd be quite a dangerous occupation.
To be quite honest, Michael, it depends on the situation. I mean, they were fairly off limits because if you start attacking somebody else's family and you know full well the next time that it's going to come back to you. So by and large, they were off limits. But yeah, I mean, there was a huge amount of stragglers and, of course, deserters as well. Yeah. Because that's the other thing. We always think
count me in for that.
You and me both, Tim. Yeah. That looks a bit dicey,
Somebody's going to get hurt here.
Yeah, so I mean, with the Jacobite forces, I mean, once the victory at the Boyne had been kind of, been evident, there's quite a lot of evidence to say that a lot of the Jacobites said, I was never in this, and they kind of melted off home again. Right. But a bit like 1798, after the defeats in 1798 battles. People were fairly anonymous. You could melt away back into unless somebody informed on you. Say, there's Billy Simpson. There's Billy Simpson. He's the the guy who's been out there.
He's a ringleader.
And there's knock on the door by a red coat. It is. You think, how do you make that
uniform?
Burn your uniform. Put your pike in the thatch again.
If you're unlucky and you die, and the guns were kind of single shot guns and muskets and take a bit of time, but otherwise you could be like trampled to death by a horse or stabbed and it was swords. What would kill you most in a battle of the Boyne? What are you afraid of most?
Afraid of most? That's a very good question because the musketry, very good question. Because in this period, musketry is a danger, cannon fire is a danger. Oh, yeah. But really, it's the hand-to-hand where people could,
so it's up close and personal.
Up close and personal with with butt of your musket and butt of your flintlock and matchlock, bayonet. Because in this, we're beginning seeing the start of bayonets introduced. But what they do in those days, you would have attached the bayonet onto these were very, very newfangled weapons. So not everybody would have had these, but you attach them to the stock of the rifle, and you couldn't fire it, but you ended up turning it into a short pike. Right. So if that's how those kind of the bayonet and then evolved into you attach the bayonet and could fire the gun at the same time. But swords of course that's why heavy cavalry and light there weren't so many distinguishing between heavy cavalry and light cavalry at the Boyne and Aughrim. Pretty much if you were on a horse if you were a dragoon you had a gun as well and you could dismount. The whole practice was to effectively you ride up to the enemy, you dismount, hide behind a hedgerow, pop, pop, pop. You get back on your horse, move to another bit. And if you had to, you could engage enemy cavalry because you were also a horseman. You effectively just mounted infantry. And Aughrim is one of those things, we're talking about, were camp followers targets? Well, we sort of think, to me, Aughrim, it's one of the most, haunted battlefields, and that's a phrase that David Chandler came up with at the Royal Military Academy Sandhurst years and years ago. But haunted acres, he referred to battlefields. Aughrim is one of those places where you go and you actually think, oh my God, you could actually you can
Feel a ghost.
You can feel it.
Just to for clear, we all know the sash. Of course, we know the sash.
Yeah.
We're the Give My Head podcast, and the sash it was worn in Derry, Aughrim,
and the
Enniskillen,
Boyne.
and the Boyne. And Aughrim is actually a far bigger, more significant battle the
It
year
is.
after the Boyne, because it's the one where
Everything is
after the
settled.
Boyne. James flees.
Yes.
William goes back to England, but this is the war continues. But this is
Yes.
the one that settles it. It's over,
It
done.
is it's over and done.
Massive
You can-
victory for
yeah.
the Williamites, and it's
It's a-
slaughter, is it? Where is Aughrim, by the way?
Galway. It's way, way, way down. And the thing is, with Aughrim, it's 35,000 are present at Aughrim, so it's not as big a battle as the
Right.
Boyne, but nearly 7,000 are killed.
Right.
And you think 7,000 out of 35,000, that's a huge amount. And again, the vast majority of those casualties are dead, are Jacobite dead. So again, although, we're talking that maybe about, sort of, I think, Ginkle was the Williamite commander, Saint Ruth was the French Jacobite commander. Of course, there's a part during the Battle of Aughrim where he's like, the line is wavering.
Yes.
And he says to the Jacobites, come on, we'll chase these scoundrels to the very gates of Dublin. And then his head is taken off by a round shot. I mean, that's sort of, you kind of think, you should, bad job.
Bad luck, isn't it?
Bad is bad luck. That was really
I
inspiring.
don't know, if you want yourself on that battlefield, there's things, it's not really bad luck.
There's
you're gonna say inspiring.
7,000 at
dead.
Aughrim, which
Yeah.
is, perspective and all that, but twice as many people died in the Troubles over 35 years. So these are, I know battles are different in
the
those
battle's
days.
different, but
It's a
sort
bit
of-
fucking miserable being a soldier
It
in
is.
those days, isn't it?
It
I mean,
is.
it's not... The people do it because they had to, because they wanted to, for
It's
the money.
the
for
age-old thing, isn't it? I mean, sort of, some people do it for the adventure, some people did it for money, and of course, in this day and age, you're talking about plunder and loot as well, and that's something which has been, stopped in professional soldiering for the last 150 odd years, 200 years, but up until about maybe the Napoleonic Wars, plunder and loot was part of your pay.
Part of the gig.
Yeah, part of the gig.
Right.
So.
So would you literally go around the dead bodies of the enemy and go through their pockets and see
Do
what you
know
have,
what?
or would you?
I'll tell you this. There's a pal of mine who, Rob Schaefer, a German historian, and he's written a very good book. I couldn't recommend it hardly enough about the Battle of Waterloo. I'll tell him to roll his eyes because at the moment I'm really enthusiastic. I do love
Do that? Okay.
Yeah, and he's written about actually the war dead, or of the casualties and the war dead of Waterloo. The night of the 18th of June, it was scoured by camp followers who were picking purses, money, all the rest of it. And then there were the folks taking the teeth
Oh.
for the dental industry.
Yeah.
So the whole sort of people in middle class Georgian Britain had Waterloo teeth,
Oh,
which were
right.
made out of dead people. Waterloo
Dead
teeth.
Frenchmen.
Dead Frenchmen or dead Brits.
Is that the 19th century equivalent of turkey teeth?
And then, do you know what they did? They also ground up all the bones of the war
Yes,
dead.
I heard this. Yeah.
Yeah.
The what?
They ground the bones up for cattle feed and stuff like that.
All right.
Yeah.
Well.
So they had, and if they weren't burnt on the pyres outside, but for example, outside Hougoumont and the Haysont, they burnt on huge funeral
Right.
pyres. But yeah, a lot of them ended up as
So not much
cattle feed.
dignity then. in
No
dying in
dignity at
battle
all.
and, yeah,
No,
and
certainly no
you get
dignity.
your-
And the whole Napoleonic idea, Napoleon's idea of glory on a battlefield, was very, very hollow.
Right.
So Aughrim is this decisive battle, much higher casualties. Why is it? I know it's in the sash that we just said, but why is it not the decisive war? Why is it not the one that's celebrated?
That's a fascinating question, Michael.
Two
because
kings, I've told you already.
Oh, two-
Two
oh,
kings.
okay.
Well,
Okay.
and shortly after Aughrim, and certainly in the first half of the 18th century, Aughrim was the one that everybody celebrated.
Yeah, see?
Yeah,
See?
Aughrim was
Not the kings.
Aughrim was of glorious memory.
Yeah.
And then it kind of be, oh wait a minute.
They think it's all over. It is now.
It is now.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it kind of went, oh, well, do you know what? Boyne was two kings. So let's go for the Boyne and Aughrim. They used to say Boyne and Aughrim.
Yeah.
It was yes. And then because, and Enniskillen, because Enniskillen comes from Derry. And then because, and then they invent the sash.
You see, they have the sham battle at Scarva every year. And it's not a very good depiction because they have James laying down and with Billy at his throat and all of that there. But James had fecked off by then. They never met.
Okay,
He'd
no, but
fecked.
it's nice street theatre, isn't it? You know, it's the whole thing. And as somebody who grew up in Scarver, I can tell you that it's a huge kind of like sort of thing. And I was always told that nobody actually got to choose their side until the morning. It was whoever got to. Yes, you have to be quick. You have to be quick and choose
I was always wondering about that.
Yeah, so whoever plays King Billy and whoever plays King James, that's always sorted out beforehand. But whoever is on either side, you have to.
Did you always want to be a historian? Is that always your thing?
Yeah, to be quite honest.
Was it? You were just into it from the
I was
start?
into it since I was a little boy. I was always into it, and I blame Look and Learn if you remember
Look and
Look and Learn.
Yeah, I remember
and Ladybird books and things like that.
Ladybird books. Yeah.
And films, of course, they were the kind of things that really kind of like inspired me, But I was, and archaeology since I was knee high, I was always into Tutankhamun and all that kind of thing. Fascinated me when I was a boy. It was all that kind of stuff. You kind of think. And then Indiana Jones comes out in the mid-'80s, and you're going, oh, doesn't that look good? That look good.
It's not.
It was actually. Do you know? His dad was based. And then I found out his dad was based on me. So
Okay. So are you one of those historians who likes to
sleep a lot?
Likes to laugh when people go, well, people have very strong political opinions about Irish history, and are they mostly wrong when people talk about Irish history?
I'm going to say no. In a
we
lot of ways.
I have to say, I'm not going to name any names here, but we're making the series long and short. We've had historians going, don't put me in the same room as him. I'm not getting into the same room as him.
And it's always been me.
It's never been you. I just want you to know it's never been you. Right. You're a nice fella. Right, I mean, but there are historians who are quite firm in their views, yes, and quite territorial and quite superior in their approach.
Do you know, that's the problem, Damon. I think, whenever you are trying to explain things to people, if you are very dogmatic about stuff, people switch off. And also, if you don't have any kind of humanity about the whole thing, and to have humanity about it, you've got to be able to see both sides of everything. I mean, when I first did my history degree when I was very, very, very young, the last century, and my archaeology degree, we were always taught, not to be ethnocentric. That's a great word, ethnocentric. Don't judge the past by today's standards. You've got to be fair-minded. And now it seems, like you were saying earlier, now it seems you judge the past by today's standards. Yeah. You can't do that. Because, I'm not going to do the old cliche, the past is a foreign country, they do things differently there. But, even in our lifetimes, which is, we're all young ones, I know that. But the whole idea of, say, for example, when we were growing up, and you had a telephone in your hall, and that's where you had the telephone. Or you went out to use the phone box. And you think the cultural kind of change that is, or the mentality of having your phone in your hand all the time and growing up, never knowing that you had to have change to go and put it into a phone box. Or you had to, if you had no change, phone up the operator and say, could you do a reverse call? Or whatever it might be. These are all wee fundamental things that we all take for granted.
Yeah,
and when
or if you missed the Morgan Way special, Christmas special,
that was it. That's it.
You was no saying it again.
No.
You didn't say it. That was it.
No, yes, this is it. And there was many a time I rushed back to watch Doctor Who at 5:30 on a Saturday. I'd missed it. I'll never know what happens to Tom Bacon now. I had to wait 40 years till it came on iPlayer.
The box set comes out.
I know. And even that, even you think whenever the whole idea when VHS came out, I was like, you can take Dallas and back then you can watch it any time you want. You can have your own video recorder. You can tape. Emmerdale
You've
Farm.
changed time.
You've changed time.
The time continuum.
Yeah.
That's right.
Do you know, and this is the whole thing, the pattern of history changes in our own lifetimes and we hardly notice it.
It's funny, we were filming a thing about Brendan Smith.
Oh, yes.
The drama about it. And there was a young girl actress was playing one of the survivors. And she had a scene where she had to run to the telephone box. We had to get an old type, red telephone box, and she runs into the phone box to make a phone call. So we do the thing, action, she runs in, does that, and then just stands And I go, what's wrong? And she goes, what do I do? And I said, what do you mean? What do you do?
Do that.
You have to do
Things
that.
you have to
Hold
do.
on.
It was always push button. Of course. Why? What do you mean? What do you mean you do that?
I did say to my young son once when he playing another, he was complaining about something. I said, "Oh, play another record." He looked at me and went, "What's a record?"
All right, come on. This is an old man's club. That's all it is. And my day.
Well, now it's
Go
come
on.
full circle now, Damon.
Yes.
Go into HMB and you get yourself a
vinyl.
Vinyl. At least you know how much a vinyl record is.
Tell me about it.
Yeah.
The great thing about
We'll
film
move to the
archive.
main room now and watch Cash in the Alley.
Oh, no, I'm
Oh, bar.
Gentlemen, you may now smoke.
Did you see our series Pop Goes Northern Ireland?
I most certainly did. It's
Yeah.
a wonderful series.
I did a lot of the research for that
Yeah.
because so you see like half an hour. So I spent like a week just looking at tapes of that
Footage,
year. Yeah.
yes.
And it was one of the best way to describe it is the nearest thing to time travel you're ever going to get, because the BBC had a huge archive of stuff from that year. You know, I found my granny walking down the Falls Road in August 1969. Good panorama come over, and we're after the August riots.
Yeah.
And there was my granny and my auntie and my two, cousins walking down over the rubble. I found my brother being frisked by a squatty in 1979.
Wow.
At the turnstile
Yes.
in Castle Street.
Oh, good grief.
He looked a bit
Remember-
suspicious
yes.
at us.
Yeah, I would have pressed him. I'd have pressed him.
But
It's there.
That
It's there,
is
yes.
almost like time travel.
Yeah.
That's the thing that you have with that. And when we find when we're doing, I go through the Pathy archive when we're doing stuff that's, from the 20s or the 30s.
Yeah.
But with the sort of periods that you're dealing with, you don't really have that, do you?
You don't, that's the interesting thing. I mean, I find that with photographs, that's the interesting thing. How far back can you go with photographs? Well, you can go fairly far back. And actually there is again, there's a very Waterloo kind of thing, isn't it? Well, Waterloo in photographs, surely you're wrong. There's an old photograph of the Duke of Wellington in his dotage a year or so before he dies. And you actually see him there in his later years. But you think, my goodness, that's actually Wellington. And then there's other photographs from France where French veterans dressed up, squeezed themselves into their old uniforms to have their photographs taken. They're all in their 60s and 70s and maybe a wee bit older than that. And you think that's quite cool, because you're getting a glimpse, but it's not actually the time itself. And then you get the first pictures of things like the American Civil War, or before that,
A lot of photographs.
the Crimean War.
Yeah.
And the Crimean War is really the first photo captured war. And that is jaw-dropping. Because, of course, now you can clean up the Roger Fenton photographs, you can clean them all up. And, of course, there used to be a thing, because this is the 12th special, they used to have a whole thing about, Balaclava Day as well. That used to be celebrated on the 12th. A lot of things used to be, Balaclava Day. Waterloo Day kind of used to be included in the 12th.
Balaclava Day, they had a different meaning, though.
I was going to say,
as we got into
we changed our view about
60s and 70s and 80s,
that had a different meaning.
Every day was Balaclava Day.
Around some, Yeah, but that's it. We all change what you can even get away with. So I'm having a Balaclava Day. Are you? But yeah.
We're this week is the 12th, and there are lots of people out celebrating. Will you tell them they're wasting their time because they think it's about beating the takes, and it's not, because the Pope did want to leave.
Well, it is all about beating the French.
It's about beating the French, which is a different thing altogether. I don't think the people in Shaftesbury Square today
don't realise the
necessarily
gravity
see it that way.
realise the gravity of it all.
But it's going to be with us for a long time, isn't it? We're not going to. I mean, that's
so.
the nature of Northern Ireland politics. But the Orange Order is, it's a large organisation. Those celebrations are not going to go away, and that's more to do with modern politics rather than any knowledge of
the historical events,
and Williamite wars. Isn't that correct?
No.
You used to do the commentary for the BBC and for GB News on the 12th.
I did. I used to be up the sky. Well, initially with the much loved and esteemed Walter Love. We were in the
Walter
box
Love.
up there, Walter, the very first 12th I did was with Walter. And he and I I said, well, it's just a ladder to get up here. And he said, yes, it's a ladder. I can't believe they make you climb a ladder to get into the way. I said, we do. He said, it just looks like a scaffold. And he just said, yeah, beware the long drop, Gavin. You know what is going on? And he told me once about the time they put him in a cherry picker.
All right.
And I said, I think to look over Bedford Street.
Right, okay.
And he just had one word of advice. He said, one word of advice, I've never let them put you in a cherry picker. I said, but can they do that? And then the next year I was at Bestbrook and there was a cherry picker. And the producer was like saying, yeah, it's either you or Ralph will go up in the cherry picker. Big Ralph McLean, big Ralph McLean. And luckily they had actually a roving cameraman. He was the one they were going to put up. But I remember Walter's wise words were in my ears thinking, oh, don't let them put you in the cherry picker.
Don't go in the
don't go in the cherry
Walter
picker.
Love, a very venerable and much missed broadcast. I met him in the BBC one time. He had a jazz program.
Oh, he did. It was very good.
He was very elderly even at that time. And I said, Walter, how are you? And he was in the BBC and he says, great, Tim. They don't know I'm still here. He was still getting away with it.
He was.
So you did the BBC and then you were a bit on GB News with Arlene
That's
doing.
right.
And,
That's right.
And there were a couple of instances where Arlene was interviewing people and some of the celebrants of the Battle of the Boyne were celebrating in the way maybe the Jacobites did before the Battle of the Boyne. And
I seem to
indulging in some
Belfast.
libations. And
Yeah,
was there a bit of, hey!
I seem to remember Belfast and the Belfast Telegraph's banner headline the next day was red, white, and definitely blue.
Oh,
Very good.
Oh yes, I mean the thing is that is the danger of doing an outside broadcast live amongst sort of a crowd which is enjoying itself, frankly, and
Right.
you're there with people enjoying themselves, and they're going to shout out to you. Just a question of whether you can suddenly bleep it or not, But bit of Chaucerian vernacular never doesn't.
Chaucerian vernacular. See, this is the type of intellectual
Yeah,
we
it's
need
like-
in this
like-
program, this
I keep
podcast.
telling you, Tim, to do
Chaucerian.
that. And we can sit and do this here and go, no, it's a very interesting point. I actually, on that
You don't want
point,
Give My Head podcast. You want In Our Time.
I would love it. In Our Time, I don't want to recommend a conjure program, but In Our Time, yeah.
You just want to be Melvin Bragg.
Melvin, this
Well, you
is
can just change the name to In Our Tim.
Chaucer. What was Chaucer doing? No, I was going to say the thing though. Interestingly enough, if you drive like up on Newton Ards Road and stuff, and there's the murals. Not many of King Billy anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Much more of either the Titanic or the Somme. Seems to me more the vibe now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, funny enough, actually, we were talking earlier, I was going to say, the Titanic and the Somme are pretty much now those are that, and a bit more about Luther maybe, but, it's becoming less and less, I think, except on the banners. Actually,
Yeah.
on the 12th parades itself, it's
Yeah.
different, but the
There's
murals
not
have
the murals
changed.
anymore, yeah.
No, and actually also I've noticed quite a lot about the Polish in the Second World War. That is more and more around Arnhem. Things like that are being more painted on murals, and of course Ruby Murray, and more
course, yeah.
and sort of Hurricane
Local
Higgins
stuff,
and
yeah.
local stuff. Which
Yeah.
to be quite honest, I mean,
I remember when I was
it's all powerful good.
North Belfast, early days of the Troubles. I was doing school past the New Lodge, and there was on a wall, and I don't like to swear, but it was in July. I said, "Fuck 1690, we want a rematch." Is a rematch on? And we had the rematch, and it ended in a score draw.
Indeed, yeah.
Well, it'll not go away anytime soon. Last question now.
Last question.
Last question then. Did King Billy actually cross that bridge at Sandy Road when they took it away? Now, the rumour is he crossed about 1,000 bridges and his horse stopped and drank water.
And every single one of them.
hedge.
He was in Loch Brickland, I can tell you that.
was in Loch
He was in
Brickland?
Loch Brickland, definitely. He was in Loch Brickland, and he
And did he cross the Boyne
Did
Bridge?
he
is
cross
what
the
he's
Boyne
asking
Bridge
here.
at Sandy
do you know
Road?
what? I think the jury is out on that one.
That's a no. That's a no. So
Although I do
So
remember the
Translink were
Bibles.
right there.
He went down where did he go down the Westlink then?
Although I'll tell you this, I think it's probably getting a bit confused with Schomburg. Schomburg probably did cross
Right.
the Boyne Bridge.
Yeah, but he doesn't count.
But he doesn't count. He
doesn't.
crossed the old long bridge in
Schomburg is his
Belfast.
commander, yeah.
I know, but he doesn't
He
count.
doesn't
He's not
count.
King Billy.
So maybe a year before, Schomburg probably did use that route.
Right.
But King William, he might have done.
Well, I think we've sorted out virtually everything. We've sorted out all the rumours and
counter rumours.
And counter rumours. Dr. Gavin Hughes, always a pleasure to see you, my friend. You will see Gavin in the new series of The Long and the Short of It, which is coming out. We don't know when it's coming out, but there's filmed and you were appearing.
Well, he's in it.
At least a couple of episodes.
Despite that.
I guess there 3 of them.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the Give My Head podcast. By the way, I forgot to say, Give My Head piece is on sale for next year.
That's right,
Our
yes,
tour show is available. You can buy tickets now through sales in the Grand Opera House and in Vicar Street in Dublin and other venues. And I'm continuing my mini tour of the Height of Nonsense. Is in the Playhouse in Portrush on the 7th of August and in the Grand Opera House, or not the Grand Opera House, the Lyric on the 29th of August. In the meantime, have a very happy 12th and enjoy yourselves. I know it's the 13th, but have a very happy 12th.
We're off to Donegal.
We're off to Donegal. Thank you very much for listening to this episode of the Give My Head podcast. We'll see you next time. In the meantime, thank you very much, Dr. Gavin Hughes. Thank you, Gavin.
Thank you very much indeed for us.